Donald Trump's top counter-terrorism director has doubled down on the warning to Anthony Albanese to ramp up our defence spending. It looks like this is going to be a major sticking point in Australia's relationship with the United States. Trump's director for counter-terror, Sebastian Gorka, tells me tonight that the threat of communist China is more grave than terror. And he made the claim as he reinforced the message that Australia needs to lift its defence spending. And he says President Trump expects Australia to take the threats to its citizens seriously.
You are measured by how seriously you take the threats to your citizens, to your sovereignty. And if you wish to be understood as friends, as allies, and partners, that requires certain traits and certain behaviors to be met. And committing to your own defence, so we are stronger together, is clearly one of them. So the people of Australia, the government they choose, will decide the exact percentages of GDP. But I think the president will have an opinion when he meets with his Australian counterpart.
That full exclusive interview coming up shortly. Now, the US view is that the threat to our region from China means we urgently need a stronger defence capability. Beijing has invested heavily to modernise its military for over a decade. And some say they're well ahead of America in terms of defence tech. Trump's vision is to develop a Golden Dome defence system to protect America against ballistic missiles. It's inspired by Israel's Iron Dome, which mostly keeps its citizens safe from air attack. And Trump draws on Reagan's plan for a strategic defence initiative from during the Cold War. There are even calls for interceptors in space to block incoming attacks, and that would truly be revolutionary. But America wants to share the cost of defending the West militarily. I mean, currently, the US is expected to shoulder the burden of defending any country in the West should it become vulnerable to enemy onslaught. Now, Gorka's message tonight comes after Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth said the Trump administration expects Australia to lift its defence spend from 2% to 3.5% of GDP. And here he was at the Shangri-La Dialogue.
Our defense spending must reflect the dangers and threats that we face today. Because deterrence doesn't come on the cheap. Just ask the American taxpayer. Time is of the essence. We must step up and move out with urgency.
What's deeply worrying is we've seen no sign that Albanese is taking these warnings seriously. Warnings that don't only come from the Trump administration, but from multiple security and defence agencies. Adding to the pressure was even the Australian Defence Force Chief, David Johnston, who today said the government expenditure needs to increase.
Putting the case to government to increase the defence expenditure where we believe it is needed to meet particular outcomes. We're in the process of doing that work and building that advice to government now.
Albanese's weak response to these mounting calls for a stronger defence spend speaks to his own complacency. And not just complacency, but naivety about the world we're living in. The Australian's foreign editor Greg Sheridan brutally mocked Richard Marles's comments at the Shangri-La conference, saying his speech was more like a woolly foreign affairs thumbsucker than that of a defence minister. Sheridan writes with some alarm that Marles has simply suggested more multilateral processes. He says, of course, more multilateral processes, just what we need to deter the Chinese from taking military action against Taiwan. Brilliant. Don't get me wrong, he writes, arms control treaties can make a contribution. They've got nothing to do with the urgent tasks of today. But the whole point of the Albanese government domestically and in national security is to avoid the urgent tasks of today. And Sheridan concludes that Albanese has not secured any new defence assets for Australia and also that we're less capable militarily now than when the Prime Minister first came to office. Another foreign policy expert, Ross Babbage, says the Prime Minister is betting that he can convince Trump to accept the government's minimalist plan for defence spending during the next decade without doing serious damage to the US-Australia alliance. And he has this warning. He says most important is the challenge of Beijing's surging military power, its extensive preparations to fight a major war, and its aggressive behaviour towards Taiwan, Japan, the Philippines, and other regional democracies. Now, foreign policy experts have different views on whether China does intend to reunify Taiwan or not, and the time frame for that. Hegseth has suggested China could take military action against Taiwan imminently. Others aren't so sure. But it's not just unpredictability around China that's a concern. We've seen Russia intent on expansion, starting with Ukraine, and Iran is getting closer to nuclear capability every day. A confidential report by the International Atomic Energy Agency revealed that Iran had ramped up production of 60% enriched uranium this year. It's increased its stockpile from 274 kilograms to 408 kilograms, and that's just since February. Now, Trump has engaged in 5 rounds of talks with Iran. He says he prefers diplomacy. But Tehran is developing near weapons-grade uranium stockpiles while these talks are underway. I mean, it's getting ridiculous, and it might be time to face reality and strike their nuclear capabilities before their weapons are ready to fire. The reality is our enemies are emboldened, and we need to have the best possible defences, both as protection and as a strong deterrent. It seems like the Albanese government is willfully blind to the threats we face and also their role in standing up to them.